Hello and welcome to Your Family Bank podcast. It's good to be with you again today. I've got a great guest. We've got Jon on the call today, and he's going to be talking to us about his experience with his kids and also how we can maybe create processes and things to make our lives a little bit easier as we talk about raising kids. So, Jon, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Start off, give us the 2-minute version of how you got here and what you're doing.
Sure. Born and raised in the Midwest. I live out on the East Coast now in Maryland, right outside Washington, D.C. I have a law degree. I have an MBA. I am a two-time Amazon bestseller author. One is more on my consulting practice, which is about being a curious leader and adopting curiosity in how we lead and run our organizations. Then on the personal side, I've actually released a book on co-parenting. My ex-wife and I have a great co-parenting relationship. The book is called The Co-Parenting Secret. It's not about you. Also had the privilege of being a TEDx speaker and, just keep moving forward. My goal is to help people, leaders, and organizations thrive and succeed. And that's what I'm all about out here.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, I've got definitely some good questions around the co-parenting aspect. Sure. I think that's going to be some fun stuff there. But before we dive in, give us a little bit of something unique about you most people wouldn't know.
I guess my tagline for that is always, I am a hockey playing power lifter who loves Broadway musicals. Is kind of the unique thing about me.
Yeah, those are three very usually unrelated things.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, let's jump in. So I want to talk a little bit about your growing up, your history. Was there a time growing up, something that stands out to you as like either a really good experience you had where your parents taught you about money, or a really bad experience, something you felt that kind of shaped how you view money and kind of how, you moved forward growing up?
Yeah. My upbringing in money is very interesting, I would say. I grew up in a very Southern Baptist, conservative home growing up. And that wasn't just, lifestyle and worldview, but also around money. And I actually had this conversation with my mom from time to time, like, I don't know if my family, I don't want to say poor, right? Because we were always fed, had good homes, or, we weren't poor, but we were like the very bottom of middle class that couldn't afford certain things. Or was it just the values of my mom and probably predominantly my stepdad growing up, and just where we weren't allowed to buy Nike shoes and name brand stuff and all that stuff. And, so that certainly, I've certainly taken that upbringing and changed how I raise my son a little bit. But it's a weird dynamic because we didn't feel poor, right? We didn't feel poor outside of some of those materialistic things. But it did create this question in my head growing up, like, can we really not afford certain things, or is it just what they value and won't put money towards?
And there was no real discussion around that. It was just kind of like, you just can't do it and that's it, or any explanations, none of that?
Yeah. I mean, I even remember, I think it was junior high, 7th or 8th grade junior high, playing basketball in junior high where the team was required to purchase team basketball shoes. Everyone on the team was required to. And initially my stepfather was like, no, ain't happening. Like, I don't believe in that. I'm not dropping $80 on tennis shoes that are going to be worn for a year. I think between my own money and splitting it with my parents, I think is how we got there. So, again, like, there never was a discussion. I guess there was a discussion, right? Like we're not doing that is somewhat of a discussion. It kind of put it down flat. On the flip side of this, so like, me and my brother had a paper route as early as 5th grade. So we really learned early on that if we wanted certain things that our parents weren't willing to buy, we had to work for it. So there is a give and take, I think, toward that background where we did learn to, work for ourselves, earn some money, and put money to where we wanted. Even I started playing hockey in 8th grade, which if anyone out there plays hockey, even just your basic generic equipment is $500-600 even back in the 90s, and we were required to split it. My parents were willing to pay for half. We had to pay for the other half, and so I think it did instill in us the value of money and working hard for money and understanding that it doesn't come from a tree.
Yeah, it helped. Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing with our kids is helping them understand that there is something behind that. When you have to work for it, you realize, okay, the effort that went to create that dollar, there's something there. And so, value it a little bit more, maybe take a little bit better care of it, clean it, wash it, whatever it is. So I love that. And it's interesting. Almost everybody I've had on the show has come from that kind of background. And yet now, very successful, bestseller, all those things. How do you transition that to your kid who's probably not going to have the same struggles that you had?
Yeah, so it's been interesting, right? And I tend to have some conversations with him around his birthday and Christmas because I don't tend to get him a lot of things. I'll usually get him one little thing, but I have a conversation with him. I was like, look, buddy, when I was growing up, if I really wanted something, I had to wait for an event where there was presents given. Like if I changed hobbies, if I did these certain things, my parents didn't just support that and buy me what I wanted in that time. I had to wait. I've been different with you. I when you change hobbies, I support that. I buy you things in real time, and we don't necessarily wait till all your shoes and clothes are falling apart before we get new ones, other than for Christmas time. And so I had those conversations with him a little bit around money and into why I don't give as much at those big moments, because I tend to support him in real time, and he's like 100% okay with that. He's like, you're right, Dad, you do. I probably talk to my son a little bit more about my money than I should sometimes. I don't know. I think it's a catch-22, because he knows that I make decent money, and we're going to Alaska this summer. We're going to fly first class because it's 8-hour flight, and my son this is going to be the third time my son's been in first class flying. I was on my first airplane. He's 10 years old, by the way. I was on my first airplane, I think, in late high school. So like a really, really different lifestyles. And I am starting to struggle now that he's getting older. He notices money. He wants money. He wants to spend money, and how do I create that responsibility in him, not feel like a privileged kid, and still respect money. Sometimes I would say like my son is spoiled, but not in the sense of, he's almost like anti-spoiled. And what I mean by that is like we would do anything in the world on weekends with him, go see a basketball game, go see a hockey game, go to the movie theaters, whatever. But he's content sitting on the couch playing his tablet. And that's not how I grew up. We didn't grow up with electronics. We were always outside playing sports, doing things, doing activities. And he's just content watching YouTube videos, playing on his tablet. And so he doesn't take advantage actually of some of the fun and excitement he could have in his life. Is changing a little bit now as he's getting a little bit older. And I'm actually starting to wear like, do you want to go to the, University of Maryland, was in the playoffs for NCAA soccer, and that's his sport. I was like, do you want to go to the Maryland game? He's like, nah, not really. I was like, well, too bad, we're going. I'm tired of this. Like, I'm just comfortable sitting on the couch and doing nothing, but let's go have some fun. We'll get some concession stands. We'll watch the game and have a good time. So I'm starting to, there's been a little bit more push and pull as of late, in getting him to actually understand that we have the money to enjoy life in a different way than a lot of other people can.
Yeah, a couple of thoughts and ideas there. One is I love that the money is spent more on experience necessarily than things. I think that's an important thing, how we choose to spend our money there. But thinking back to, in relation to, your parents, your upbringing versus how you're creating things is, it's okay to spend money when you have it on some of those things. I think that's, sometimes a hard thing for people to get over is well, I've been making money. Yeah, I've been working hard, but I don't want to flaunt it. I don't want to do this, but it's like, you need to enjoy your money as well. I'm an estate planning attorney. I work with a lot of, elderly clients, and they're, terrified about spending their money at the end. And it's like, if you don't fly first class, guess what? Your kids are definitely going to fly first class with the money you're going to leave them. And, not that that's a bad thing, but why don't you fly first class with them? Have that experience with them, do those things.
Even my wife and I, that's what we value, is doing things. I asked my wife for Christmas, like, look, do you want some nice jewelry or something? Or there's a Michelin star restaurant that we experienced last year for Christmas. I took to her as a surprise. It's like, we can go there again. It's a themed restaurant, so it's a different experience every time you go. And she's like, yeah, let's do that restaurant again. 100%. Like, don't give me jewelry. Don't give me clothes. Don't give me a handbag. Like, let's go have a 8-course meal paired with wine and caviar and enjoy ourselves. And that's what we're going to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And, for some people it is the jewelry, and that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's 100%. What is it that you enjoy and spend it on? Yeah, don't overdo it, get yourself in debt, all those things. But if you have the means and you've set aside the savings and whatnot, life is meant to be lived. I think that's something most parents struggle with, is with being successful. You have two ends of the spectrum. You have the give them everything you want, and then you have the no, I'm not going to give them anything, and you got to find that balance.
Yeah. And another thing, I'm an entrepreneur, and my income the last 5-6 years has ebbs and flows. I've had some really, really great years, followed by some downturn years. And when I'm in those downturn years, like, I'm working harder. I'm probably a little less enjoyable to be around. So one of the things I feel like is my family is along this journey with me, and they have to suffer through the lows with me. So I obviously make sure that they're experiencing the highs with me as well. And I don't want to obviously feel like a roller coaster for them, but I do talk about, like, things are a little tighter right now. We're not doing as much, but 2025 has been a very good year for me. And the minute, like, I knew that, like, there was plenty of money in the bank, that's when I started looking at the Alaska trip and planning that. We're actually going to take my mom and my stepdad as well with us. And so I really do, I see that, like, although the money is mine, I do believe it exists for me to enjoy it with my family, because they have to put up with the times that are rough.
We were talking before the show about, you just started an allowance with your son. So maybe talk a little bit about that, how you structured that, what's the incentives like, and then, how does that play into, the co-parenting thing? Because a lot of times one parent says one thing, another one says another, and, how do you make that work?
Sure. Let me start with the co-parenting thing first, because, one thing about our relationship is, if you read the book, it's really about, we have created this, just cohesive relationship across both houses. Growing up, I grew up in a mixed family as well, or two home family. And, we had completely different world values between the two homes. One was, Christian music only, going to church 3 times a week. And the other one was watching rated R movies, listening to Elton John, Michael Jackson, and Elvis, right? Like, I had 2 very, very different worldviews in the houses I grew up in, where we've really created this environment. I guess it helps that we have very, very similar worldviews in how we view things in parenting, but we've created this cohesive relationship. So we actually both independently were working on what we wanted to do with Henry for an allowance, for a bank account, et cetera, without talking to each other first. But before we pulled the trigger, finally, like, hey, just let you know I'm doing this. So, like, oh, I'm actually just getting ready to do it myself. So it worked out completely, where Henry probably prodded all of this, because he's like, I want an allowance. I want to spend my own money. I don't want to spend your money. I want to spend my money. And so we both were independent in doing it, but we did both come to each other and let each other know what we're doing, and what she's using a bank, I'm using one of those online platforms, and talked about it, how we're structuring it, how I'm structuring it. Right now, giving him $10 a month. I don't really know what the going rate is for allowance these days. He does have some chores and duties he has to do. We have a dog. My wife also watches dogs professionally on the side. And so, like, when he's here, like, every morning or before he goes to bed, he has to go around and pick up all the dog toys, all the stuffing from dogs, toys being torn apart, all that type of stuff. So he's got some chores like that, keeping his room picked up. But I've also, we're trying to really instill in him some more responsibility. So even though he gets that $10 a month, I will deduct money as well. And really from like last month, I was like, buddy, I had to tell you 3 times to clean up your room, to stop putting your tablet on the ground, and it's still all the same way. Like I believe I told you 3 different times to do it, and I don't think anything has ever changed. Or if it did, you put everything right back where it was when you were using it again, to where I couldn't even tell there was a difference. And there was one month where I was like, sorry, buddy, like there's been too many back and forth and trying to force you to get things done. You lost all your allowance for this month. But good thing is next month is right here already. So you can earn it all back and earn it for this month.
Yeah. So a couple of key things, picked up from that. And this has been with everything, is communication, communicating with your son about how this is going to work, communicating with him about the, birthdays and the Christmas and all that stuff. And then the follow through, I think, is the most important thing, I take away from that. And, that is a key thing. If you're going to say these things, follow through with it, positive and negative. So pay the allowance when he earns it. But hey, you're going to lose it because I've told you 1,800 times to do this and it hasn't changed. Well, then, okay, then actually do it. And then when the friends come, this is the hardest part for parents. The friends come over, hey, we're going to this. Your son comes and says, I want to go do this. I don't have any money. Well, sorry, you didn't earn your allowance. You don't get to go. And that is the hardest thing to see them just go, oh, no, come on, I'll do better next time. Da, da, da. So if you have any advice on how to stick to it and whatnot, that would be great.
I mean, that wouldn't be hard for me is to not give him some money to go with a friend. I don't know. I have to think about that. I guess it has to be really bad, because even though I want him to earn the allowance and respect the money and respect how to spend it, I also am still his parent, right? I'm still here to make sure that his normal daily activities, everything. So I would probably, pay for that if it involved doing an activity with a friend. I haven't quite decided like where that boundary is. I think it's really for just really personalized things he wants to do. I still have a responsibility. It is your money. You can spend how you want. I still have a responsibility to not let you waste $60 in 10 minutes for a skin on a game that is going to be a new one in 2 more weeks that you're going to want that one. So I do push back a little bit on how he spends his money. Another interesting thing that's come up recently with money, and his mom was happy to kick the conversation for me to have with him, is he was really big into Pokemon for a while. But he really watched a lot of YouTube videos and studied these cards to where he knew the good valued ones, right? He knew the ones that were worth $60, $100, $200. He wanted graded cards. So we started not just getting, the boxes with a bunch of different packs, but he wanted specific cards that he wanted to buy. So there was one Christmas, I think it's 6 cards. It cost me $250. That I had different people give him, pay me the money and gave them the card to give him for Christmas. But all of a sudden he decided, like, I want to sell all my cards so I can get the money. And I was like, we're going to have to talk about this. Like these cards were an investment, and investments take time to accrue their worth. So the answer is no for the moment. We can have some conversations, but I'm to be honest with you, I'm not quite sure I will let you sell these. Again, I believe I have a responsibility as an adult to somewhat say no if it's not the best time to be doing that. And I'm like, look, Henry, like, the thing about Pokemon card is they go up in value when a new character comes out, when a new movie comes out, when new things come out in the Pokemon world, a new game. That's when the prices go up. So if you're going to sell, we at least have to wait till one of these catalysts to happen that's going to increase the value, and you can actually get a return on your investment.
Well, I love that, because then it's opening a whole new conversation, not just about money, but how investments work, what that looks like, being a patient investor, not just doing it out of whim, those kind of things. And that's the kind of stuff we're really looking to promote here on the show, is how to have those conversations. So yeah, awesome. You're into Pokemon cards. Now I can relate it to you. He's not interested in stocks, but a Pokemon card, now I can have a conversation about investments there. And that's the key thing I want to bring up and focus on is, find what your kid's interested in, and then you can relate it back, and then it's going to stick a lot more.
Yeah, and I haven't really related it back to stocks, but he again because he knows a little bit. He hears us talking, and I've been in some high risk, high reward stocks for the past 3 years. I've been buying more of them as they dip down, and he knows that if these stocks come around, like it is life changing money that's going to happen with me, and I think that's a really good point that I need to bring up to him that look, all of these things that we're able to do, buy a new house, do this and that, is because I held on to these. I held on to these for years. I held on to them with the right time to sell. If I just got bored with these stocks, as you are with Pokemon right now, and sold them, I would have had probably a 50% loss probably a 75% loss at one point. But I stuck through it. I saw the value in them. I saw what was going to happen if I was patient and waited out these downturns. And that's what's allowed us to do all that. So it's a really good reminder for me to have that message with him, when these stocks do rebound.
Yeah. It's really just about, as we've said, again, communicating, finding what they're interested in, and so on. Now, I know you're more in the business process, systematizing all that stuff. Any thoughts for us on how to help that, with the kids, so that way it's not a spur of the moment battle, or, oh, I'm going to give in, or whatever it is. Any generalized thoughts there that we can reach these parents and help them with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple of things that really relate back to kind of what I do on a consultant basis. One part of it is having a process, right? Like having it, communicating what we're going to do, how and why, right? And really lay that out. Again, my son knows that he has certain chores, and he knows there's certain times he has to do that. So we're laying the foundation. It's our standard operating procedures, your SOPs, in our house that he has to follow to first and foremost to earn that. But also, I am still the dad. I am still the CEO. There are times where, yes, you can come to me and ask, and I want you, just as I would an employee, and talk to CEOs about employees and trust, and creating that environment where you can come ask me questions and engage in conversations about something you want to do, a problem you're seeing, a solution you have for the organization. I expect my son to do the same thing. I want you to come and ask. Let's have a conversation about that. I early on in raising my son, I started the trend of not saying no. Now he's a little older; it's a little different. But I wanted him to have a rational discussion about what he was asking it for, and how we're going to handle that. And so we really do have this relationship built to where there's some give and take. He's a punk 10-year-old at times with a sense of humor, and knows how to poke my buttons and get at me. But we really can turn these type of discussions into a fun conversation. Is he disappointed at times? Sure. But I always bring it back to look, man, I know it's not the answer you wanted to hear, but again, I'm the boss. I have an organization to run. I have a family to run. Sometimes I have to make the decision based upon that and not what you want. But for the most part, it's your money. Set the ground rules, set the standards, set the expectations. But, I still have to, be in a position to where I'm CEO of this relationship.
Yeah. So I've had one of those experiences lately. My older son, he's 13, and he wanted to get into making custom scooters. That's his new thing. Is his friends were doing custom scooters. They're going to the skate park and doing that. And so he's like, oh, I can sell them this, and I can sell them for less than what they could buy them off the internet for. So we found a supplier local that, went to, he gave him a great deal so he could make his own and experience that. And putting it together was so much harder than he initially thought. But he initially was like, hey, I found this great deal. Here's someone who's liquidating their store. I can go buy all these parts and do all this stuff. And he wanted to borrow $500 to do it. And I'm just like, no, I'm not giving you a loan for that. I like the business plan. I like that idea, but that's not going to happen. So, but it's one for you, you're going to spend your money on your own scooter. Okay, great. Experience that. And at the end, it was like, do you see why I said this? There's a reason why there's a markup. It's really hard to put that thing together, to do it efficiently and whatnot. They have different tools and all that stuff. So do you still want to do this business now? no, I think I'm good. This took a lot more. And so you're right. You have to step in, and that is where being a parent is probably different than just running a business or doing something else. You have to put your foot down a little bit and then have that follow-up conversation of here's how it goes.
Yeah. Another thing that we haven't really touched on yet that I've started doing is, my son's going to have a debit card. He is going to ask at times, can I take this when I do X, Y, and Z? His after school program has kids night out, and he does things with friends, and he's going to want to spend some money at times. So I've started when we're out, we went ice skating last weekend, and he wanted to get bubble tea, and I was so I'm starting to give him my credit card so he can learn to look at the screen and make sure it's a reasonable number, to know how to tap it, to look at a receipt, to do these things. Because my worst fear, again, 3 weeks ago at the soccer game, he's like, can we go to concession stand? I was let's just wait 5 more minutes. I want to watch, a little more of the game. He's like, well, I'll take your card and go do it. We hadn't done this enough to where I felt comfortable that he would be able to look and make sure that someone didn't even accidentally add an extra 0 or 2 zeros to something. And all of a sudden I get a, $120 for a concession stand run. but then I started realizing oh crap, I'm about to get this kid a debit card, literally next week. And I haven't showed him the proper way to use this, what he needs to be looking out for. So before I release this card to him, we're going to be spending a lot of time on showing him how to do that properly.
Well, and the biggest thing I think you have to worry about is the auto tips that are put on there. So hey, this is an appropriate amount if you want to tip them. Most industries that have that, you actually should not tip them because it's not a tippable, thing, which is a whole nother conversation. But yeah, you have to be aware of that and let them read through those things.
Yeah, that's something I hadn't thought about, right? Because now every fast food restaurant, every carryout place, everything where it used to just be exchange of money for the food and not the service, right? You're tipping for the service, not the food or the product. That's a great conversation I'm going to have with him and explain. Look, sometimes Daddy, just because he's in a really good mood, will tip the coffee person $1 just because I want to, but there are certain standards of what a tip is to cover. There are certain industries where, our favorite restaurant that we go to, the waitresses and waiters make $2 an hour, which is way below what minimum wage is because they earn their money from tips. So when they serve us food, we tip them. When someone just hands us food and we're paying for the value of the food, we don't necessarily have to do that unless we want to. And I think it's probably a situation where, again, being the parent, I will probably say, look, when you're not sitting down somewhere eating or getting a drink, you need to decline the tip until you understand, what it is you're actually doing.
Yep. Yeah. And you can understand when someone goes above and beyond and all those things. Well, yeah, a lot of fascinating things here. We're just about out of time. I always like to end with, what's the best advice that you've ever been given?
Best advice I've been given. Be curious, not judgmental. Again, my consulting work is in book. My business book is on curiosity, and in how we explore different ways to do things and getting to know people on a very personal level. Again, I have a very good relationship with my son that allows us to have this back and forth dialogue, but it also requires that when we're having the discussions, I'm not doing it from a judgmental standpoint. I'm letting him learn. I'm letting him grow. I'm not doing it from this authoritative, why would you ask that type thing, but really being inquisitive and allowing him to be inquisitive as well, to really kind of learn and grow that way.
Okay. Love it. My other favorite Ted Lasso quote is, be a goldfish. Forget the bad things. Just move on. Short-term memory. You're right. He is a great philosopher. Well, thank you, Jon. Appreciate you being on the show, sharing your wisdom, sharing the personal stories about you and your son. I know that really helps our listeners out. So appreciate you. To our listeners, hopefully you got some great stuff out of here. Where can they find you, Jon?
Yeah, best thing is go to my personal brand website, jonbassford.com. That's Jon with a Jon, Bass Fish Ford Car, and check out what I'm doing there.
Okay, awesome. We'll put that link in the show notes, and we'll sign off for now. So see you next time on the Your Family Bank podcast.